what do you fear you're going to feel if you don't take your mind off of it, if you don't distract yourself?
Um, I think I kind of fear the self-criticism and the kind of loop of uh, rumination about my past and things like that. But I think I also fear the feelings of fear and sadness for me are things that I've been known to avoid um, in the past. So I'd imagine that's there as well. Um, I
Okay.
haven't really
All
shown up with a curious mind to this process yet.
great. That's actually the direction I was going to head. So if you were going to show up with a curious mind to this process of applying, what what would that be like?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I would just kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna, maybe I would schedule it in advance, like, hey, tomorrow, and I might actually do that at the end of this. Tomorrow at 2, when I'm finished up with, these tests that I need to do, maybe I'll, because I've already got my resume ready. Basically, I've done most of the prerequisite steps, but I would schedule a time to show up to do it, and then just show up with the attitude of like, well, this is an experiment more than anything. It will get something off my to-do list, but it's also an experiment. And what I can do here is um, see what kinds of things show up. What kind of thoughts do I have? What kind of feelings do I have? Um, and kind of try to be present instead of thinking about the past or the future, or just try to focus on the present and see which way my mind wants to go in terms of the past or the future. Because I know that it's not a very present focused process for me when I go to apply for these jobs. I'm usually either in the future or the past. So I think, yeah, just showing up and being ready, and maybe even writing out some thoughts. Like if I get if I go down a rabbit hole, maybe write out some of the worries that I'm having. Might be a good exercise.
What kind of worries do you anticipate that you'd have?
Well, I know that it would be like the what if spiral. Like this big long set of what ifs are kind of in the back of my head, and often if I write those down, they're a lot less scary because there are so many of them and they're coming so fast that like you never really kind of say one, look at it and go, okay, and then move on to the next one. They're just kind of all repeating themselves, it feels like. So like, what if I don't get an internship next summer? What if I can't pay my rent next summer? What if, all these kind of things. And I think writing them out will help get them out of my head and onto paper. That way I can actually be like, okay, there's, yeah, like when there's a crowd of, of worries in your head, the crowd seems bigger than the sum of its individual parts. I feel like usually it feels like when I lay them out on paper, it's like, okay, well, looking at each one of these things, especially the ones that are more, towards the end where it's like, these really catastrophic things I'm fearing, don't seem particularly likely. Um,
Yeah,
so
and at the same time, though, I really like the technique that you're describing, which is a diffusion technique, rather than, if you had the thought, what if I can't pay my rent next year? And I guess your mind could easily go into like, yeah, how do we know? Because you really kind of can have certainty about that.
mhm,
Um, so it's it's better to just kind of treat that's a thought that shows up when you're doing something challenging, and as long as it's not conscious to you, it's just giving your body stress. But as soon as you bring it into consciousness, like you write it down and get it outside of your mind, then it's easier to just see like, oh yeah, that's a possibility, just like me and all my loved ones might die. It is also a possibility, and in fact, actually something that will occur, but we're all uncertain about when that will occur.
right, right. Yeah, I think that would be good. And then in addition to that, I might even, have a conversation with my wife about it as well. She doesn't get too anxious when we discuss these kind of things because she, I think, believes in me a good deal. So I can kind of have a conversation with her about it without, putting too much of a burden on her and worrying her needlessly. But that's always a helpful exercise as well for me getting in touch with what I'm actually thinking, what I'm actually feeling. It's
Yeah. And
you
I
know,
want to comment too, just because some people that listen also have OCD and like kind of struggle with when do I talk to my partner about what I'm anxious about. And I like what you're describing, that I assume is like talking to her will be helping you understand what you're thinking and feeling and helping you go towards the fear that you're having, where if under the same conditions you were like seeking out reassurance from her for her to tell you that everything was going to be okay, um, regardless of what actions that you took, then that would like undermine your confidence.
yeah. Yeah, I think what it is I've got confidence now in the process of like getting it out of my head and either onto paper or into a conversation is like a useful thing um, for me to do. Yeah, I've got kind of experiential confidence around that. So it's
Mhm.
not, I don't think it's a crutch because, I don't even do it. It's definitely not my default state. It wasn't until we started having this conversation now that I realized, like, I've been kind of pushing all of these issues to the side, and not really confronting them with my brain. I've been confronting them with avoidance and things like that.
Yeah, all of that makes sense. When your tendency, rather than to be preoccupied and to seek reassurance and checking, when your tendency is avoidance, then bringing the pattern into light in any kind of capacity, specifically the way that we're talking about it, and then also through like writing it out or through talking it out, are all really great ways to cope. So in general, though, you're saying basically or like to summarize what you're saying, you're going to pick a time to do the task. You're going to be mindful during the task, noticing that your mind is going to want to go to the past or to the future. And in the past, it would be ruminating about the mistakes that you've made. In the future, it would be like catastrophizing the ways that things might not work out in the future. And in both cases, those are just thoughts. They're not predictions or facts or messages to you. They're just the types of thoughts that show up when you're doing something challenging in the present moment. And then you're also in the present moment going to work to get distance from any other intrusions you have by like writing them out.